Hello, everybody. Tyler James from ComixLaunch here, and I have another awesome live stream interview geared up for you in a sec. I'll be bringing on creator Will Robson, and we're going to be talking about crowdfunding serialized anthologies on Kickstarter, and I'm sure we'll get into a whole bunch of really good stuff. Before I bring Will on, I just want to remind everyone that if you are a comic creator, crowdfunder, a writer, an artist, someone who is interested in getting into this whole Kickstarter space, there's a whole ton of resources that I've put together for you. And I just want to highlight one of them right now, and that's our ComixLaunch strategy guide. You can get that over at ComixLaunch.com/superfunded. And in this guide here, I'm sharing 7 really cool, super-powered strategies that some of the best comic creators are using to crowdfund their projects on Kickstarter. If you haven't downloaded this free guide yet, there's a ton of really good stuff in there, some great examples. And there's examples that can be used from both the first-time Kickstarter creator as well as the veteran creator. There's always new tricks and strategies that we're learning. And so whether you're a first-time launcher or a veteran, I think you can get some value from that. So ComixLaunch.com/superfunded is where you can get that. All right. With that said, I'd like to bring on my guest here. My guest today on the ComixLaunch podcast has been a professional artist who has been working for the likes of Marvel and DC and Image and IDW for over a decade now. He's
and Comics Tribe.
And Comics Tribe, exactly. One of his first gigs, I believe. And he's been paid to draw the likes of Batman, Spider-Man, Deadpool, TMNT, Spawn, The Standard for John Lees and Comics Tribe. But he's been focused and making the transition over the past couple of years to doing more writing, to working collaboratively with other artists, and focusing on creator-owned. And his passion specifically, and at least this month, is focused on OUTBREAKS, which is his creator-owned zombie anthology-style comic book series. And so welcome back to ComixLaunch, Will Robson. Will, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing okay. I'm getting over a cold, so I might spin in my chair to silently puke up whatever mucus is deep in my lungs. But besides that, I'm
it always seems like it's the way that just when the weather starts looking nicer and the sun starts peeking out, all of a sudden you get whacked with something nasty. I know that's been the case for me with allergies and everything else. But hopefully you're on the mend, and I know this cold hit you shortly after launching your latest Kickstarter, but you did say one of the things that eases the pain of a nasty cold is seeing some backer support and backers coming back, right?
I launched my recent one in bed under the sheets, coughing up a lung, but it was just nice, as I'm trying to sleep through it, just hearing the noise of that backers are coming through. So a successful Kickstarter definitely helps cure a cold for the most part, that's for sure.
Exactly. And I'm just imagining poor Will just crawling to hit that launch button desperately.
I must share on all my socials and make interesting content with each post.
Yeah, nice. Well, we're gonna get into all things Outbreak. We've got some Outbreak fans already tuning in here, watching here. We got some fans of you.
How's going, Jonathan? John. Yeah,
Adriano is tuning in, and so we're gonna get all into it. We're gonna talk about the state of comics and crowdfunding. I get to talk to you. The last time we spoke, you were actually just about to launch your first crowdfunding endeavor. Now you're a bit of a veteran at it, and I've learned a lot. And so I kind of want to hear some of those learnings and lessons. I want to get into just the state of comics, if we can. Talk a little bit about navigating the waters of freelance pitching and crowdfunding, and then whatever else comes to mind. But let's start with the series that is live on Kickstarter right now. What can you tell us about OUTBREAKS?
So OUTBREAKS is my little passion project that I've had going on for a while in my head. And finally, last year, I decided, no, I'm going to try and get it crowdfunded because I just want to see it to become a reality. And it's an ongoing zombie anthology book. I love zombies. I'm a huge zombie nut. They're like one of my biggest fears. I think I said last time on this podcast that when I was a kid, I saw the Michael Jackson Thriller music video, and yes, there were zombies dancing, but they scared the crap out of me. So that it's just been a lifelong passion. But the thing with zombies is that everyone just tries to tell, the standard, oh, the zombie apocalypse has broken out, so we have to survive in its story. And The Walking Dead and all the Romero films have done that so well that it's really hard to add anything new to that. But I always thought there was more you could do with a zombie story. In my book, I have like a superhero zombie story and a dark comedy. And then in the future, we're going to have like a courtroom drama zombie story and this, that, and the other. So we're just taking zombies and thinking outside the box, much like Black Mirror does with technology. It's kind of what we're doing with zombies. So it's different styles, different genres, but the overall theme is zombies.
Yeah, I like that. And, I think there's a lot of ground that can that is still yet to be covered. And while I feel like The Walking Dead, and now with the Walking Dead extended series, like they get to scratch a lot of that ground. But these are some universal things, and the concepts of death, decay, humanity, the horde versus the individuals. Like there's so many different ways to go with it and have fun with it. And it's clear that you've been doing that. So let's talk a little bit about, I guess one of the headlines and one of the things that I think had you really excited about getting this out there was landing, a big time variant cover from, arguably one of the biggest names in zombie comics. And that would be Tony Moore, co-creator of The Walking Dead. How did that all come about? And
it's a dream come true, really. As I've been reading Walking Dead since 2005. It was my favorite comic book series as it was going on. And if you look at my art, you can see that there's Tony Moore influences in it. Like I'm a huge fan of his. The way he does expressions and lots of hatching is very important to the artist that I am. You look at my character, the Maitre Z there, it was influenced by the way he draws the Joker. So having the guy that influenced me drawing the character that was influenced by him was like crazy. So the way it happened was in the last campaign for issue 2, which had a cover by Alex Cormack, who you know very well. I love Alex Cormack's work. I want to work with him way more. I think he's the best working horror artist in comics. I keep saying that. I just think he's brilliant.
I agree. And he also, like, in terms of prolificness, he's just putting together such a resume of great horror stuff. Yeah.
But we launched that one back in September, I think it was. And it did really well. And I pulled out all the different tricks that, like, I tell anybody that asks me, like, hey, how do I go about starting a Kickstarter and all this stuff? I say, just listen to ComixLaunch. And like, this is not like Tyler's not paid me to say this or anything like that. Like, I truly mean it. Like, my routine of mine is I went back way to the beginning of ComixLaunch and I listened to all of them as I was working or in the shower. Like when I hear Tyler's voice, I think, oh, I should probably clean myself because it's like one of those effects that I've heard it so much.
Pavlovian response, huh?
That's right. Yeah. So it's just, there's just such a fountain of knowledge in there of like, just not just like what you do for launch, but all the little tricks to get backers to maybe up pledges or bring them exciting things as the campaign goes on. And I did all of that in the second campaign with like free trading card day. If you back today or up your pledge, you get a free trading card, or people can win. If whoever's the 80th backer will win a free copy of this book or a signed copy from Marvel and DC that I've worked on, etc. So I pulled out all the stops and I really put my all into that campaign. And we got overfunded to the point where I was like, all right, I've got an extra like $1,500 here. I could either take that and just work putting the book together or pay myself, or I could do something truly amazing and try and hire an amazing cover artist for issue 3. And I had already contacted Tony Moore and I got a quote being like, hey, I would love you for this cover. Like, how much would it cost? And he gave me a quote and he's like, yeah, I'm interested. That sounds really fun. So the moment like I knew that I needed to raise, I think it was like I needed to raise £5,000 in the last campaign.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm pretending like that's the goal. Like, even though I was overfunded, I was like, nope, I'm going until we get that. And luckily everyone was super supportive, really helped us hit that milestone.
Yeah.
And I was able to do that. And it's amazing. Like, his cover is tremendous. And like, it's going to be the trade paperback cover. And like, I'm using it for trading cards and merch and all this type of stuff. And Tony's been awesome about all of it. And yeah, truly just like amazing stuff.
Yeah. And I feel like sometimes there's always that fear reaching out to like a big name artist for a cover that, all right, they're going to send up they'll do it, but then they'll send you over something that's like, oh, they dashed that out in a day, in like an hour or two. And it's more of a sketch than a cover. But Tony definitely did not do that. He went to town on this. And I love how you have sort of the colors and the inks right next to each other, to show that off.
He went ballistic. I mean, my prompt to him was, hey, every cover we have has the Maitre Z in it, who's our host of it. He's kind of like our crypt keeper.
Yeah.
And I said, I just want everyone to always draw Maitre Z. I said, I had this idea of him in the lobby, like serving food to a bunch of zombies, and the food is all like human body parts, essentially. Does that sound interesting to you? He's like, yeah. But he came up with like the 3D glass like thing, which is so funny to me. Like the zombies with the 3D glasses on, and like everything. Like there's no like, I was not specific about like there needs to be a zombie in the corner doing this, and he needs to be tilting his hat. No, I just let him go free because I as an artist myself, I hate when people overcomplicate prompts or writing and all that stuff. I like it, they should trust in my ability. I've been hired as a professional, so you should just trust in a professional's abilities to produce the best content. And that's why with Tony, I said, you do you. Like if you hate my idea, do whatever you want, because I want you to have fun making this. So that was my most important thing. I pushed fun first.
Yeah. Nice. And like, how did you get connected with Tony? Did you already had you met him at a show, or this a cold outreach?
I met him a long time ago. Actually the time I did New York Comic Con, where I first met you in 2010 or 2011 or something like that. I did meet him, and I got him to sign a copy of my Walking Dead issue 4. But it's not like I said, hey, remember that guy you signed at New York Comic Con in 2011? No, of course not. He wouldn't remember me at all.
Right.
No, I blind emailed him. And that's what I've done my whole career with everything. Like, that's how I got to work with Todd McFarlane. I blind emailed him my stuff, and I got to do a book with him. I blind emailed Marvel, DC, all this stuff, and I get work that way. I love blind emailing. I think there's not enough people do it. But I'm not annoying with it though, I think there's a certain way to handle this stuff. I just said, hey, I found his email, and I said, if there's any interest, please, let's talk. And I'm putting this book together. I'm a huge fan of your work, and I'll pay your regular rate to put it together. So that's basically what I did.
Nice. And so the other thing that I love about this is that someone of Tony's stature, obviously that rate's not going to be it's not going to be cheap, but I love how you have a plan, sort of, all right, how can I maximize the value from this art that I'm going to commission? And so reusing for the trade dress, turning into cards, I could potentially see, it might be fun to poll your audience if there was interest in an inks only cover, if that's not already offered.
It's definitely available. It's called my noir covers, and I have a limited print of only 50 of them to make them super collectible and actually worthwhile collecting. Nice. So, and I have a textless version as well with no text, and there's the deluxe, and we got bookmarks, trader guides. You got to trim as much of the fat off the animal as possible, right?
Chromatic bookmark.
That's
right. I love it. Yeah. So, but this is something that it's a challenge in this modern sort of crowdfunding, creator, self-publisher model. Like, one of the challenges that a lot of creators that we discuss inside ComixLaunch Pro, and there's always people looking feedback and trying to crunch numbers, is just like, all right, what's our variant cover strategy going to be? How many covers are we going to do? What kind of cover, what kind are we going to do? Do we go with the big name artist, or are we more focused on like the gimmick format, the die cuts, the 3Ds, the metals, the foils? We did a lenticular most recently that I'm excited about and also nervous about actually getting the covers affixed and making it so they all line up. But there's a lot of decisions to make, and I personally feel like until I've made those decisions, my Kickstarter pages are like in stasis mode, right?
Right.
Until I really have the cover, because the covers are sort of like the main product, and if you don't have your main product ironed out, what do you have? But I know like there's obviously a trade-off between what you're investing in, what you're expecting to return. Like, what's your approach been so far towards variant covers for Outbreaks, and what's working for you? What are you maybe wrestling with, or where are you coming down with in the variant decisions?
Well, I think it's extremely important, especially in a self-publishing crowdfunding space, because what you're essentially doing, right, is I'm releasing a single issue of a comic book. And if I just said right there, cover A, 10 quid, I would not get funded. And I see a lot of campaigns just have one cover because they're like, this is the book. That's not how you're going to raise enough money to get this book made. The way that I make money off of this is I actually don't make, if anybody backs at the 10 quid level and they're in America, I don't make anything because I have to pay for the book to be made and shipping to America, which costs an arm and a leg. So it really comes in later on where, and again, this goes back to me saying like I'm trying to have fun, and I'm doing it in the point of view of, well, what would I want as a fan? So I'm a huge Tom McFarlane fan. So every single one of my books, I do a Tom McFarlane homage cover where I recreate one of his classic covers and put my Outbreaks characters into it. That always does really well. And then I like to do other things where basically the main cover of every single issue, I have a different artist doing. Like, sure, I could draw it myself, but I find it's more fun to have, when like you see like a variant of a comic and it's like you'll get like an Art Adams variant, like that's great. But imagine if Art Adams was on the main cover. That's something to celebrate and be really passionate about.
Yeah.
And that's why I have Tony Moore as the main cover artist, Alex Cormack, David Hartman in issue 1. I think that's a really fun thing to do. And it's like, yeah, Tony Moore costs an arm and a leg, but obviously he's worth it. 2, he's earned that because he freaking co-created The Walking Dead and he's a super amazing artist. And 3, it's an immediate talking point, right? Like I have a zombie comic right now and I get to say The Walking Dead all over my zombie comic. That in itself pays for what I paid to get him on the cover. So yeah. I find that to be super important, but there's just so many different things. Like I pretty much do all the other variants and I just try to have fun. Like I've done PlayStation style homages where the cover looks like it was Resident Evil back on the old like PlayStation 1. Yeah. But then I also like to do things where, I'm a collector myself, and there's a reason why baseball cards failed in like the late 80s and early 90s is because they said this is a collector's item, but they printed millions of them, right? And this is why I find the barcode to be actually really powerful. A lot of people say to me, why are you wasting your time with barcodes and like all that stuff? I say it because as a collector, I can see this is the first print of this book. And if you're buying something of a Kickstarter and, for instance, my issue 1, I only printed 100 copies of cover A and they're gone now. Yeah. So a lot of people say to me like, oh, can I get that cover? And I'm like, you missed out, right? Or like if I start to reprint stuff, then I'll put 2 at it. So from a collector's mentality, I know I'm going to go, hey, I want the first print, right? Like that's the one that we all want. I got tons of vinyl records behind me that I spent way too much money on because I know that they're the first print, even though I can get them a million different ways.
Right.
And also I love doing the limited prints as well. Like I said, the noir versions, I only print 50 of them and then I never reprint them. There's no second print of them or anything like that. They are super rare and that it's done on purpose because I'm a collector and I want to, so I know everything I love about collecting and I put it into my own stuff. And that's what I do with the trading cards as well. Noir variants, shinies. Yeah, I even have booster packs. Like, you remember when you were a kid buying Pokemon cards and you open up, you get the shiny card and like all the super other rare stuff. I have all of that stuff because I just love it. You know, I
Yeah.
just absolutely love it. So I've applied what gets me as a customer to buy someone's merchandise, and I've taken what convinces me to do that and put it into my own work.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's a good insight that that you should lean into if you have that. I think one of the mistakes that some creators make is that if they themselves are not collectors, or for the last 10 years that they've been trying to like be an up and coming or aspiring creator, they've realized that they had to like throttle back their own spending on comics and collectibles in order to put everything into their own creations. They tend to be like a little tight-fisted, but the downside of being so tight-fisted or myopic, or like, hey, I'm backing at the lowest level, is that you don't think from the perspective of, okay, yeah, that's how the average creator might be, but there's also a collector class out there with seemingly in some cases an unlimited reservoir of disposable funds that they're willing to throw $200, $300, $400, $500 at multiple Kickstarters every month, and it's no skin off their back, or they're just very good at pilfering credit cards that work.
Well, you never know. You never know someone's budget, right? And that's why I always make a tier for every single person's budget. And I always go to 1,000 as my top tier, which usually has original art from the book, and you collect every single like comic from issues 1 to 3 and a sketch, and like everything's chucked at like the 1,000 quid tier. And on my last 2 campaigns, I've sold both of those tiers. Like, so I see a lot of people, they don't do the super high stuff as well. But yeah, going back into the collector stuff, like one thing that was really successful in my last campaign was I started doing a deluxe version of Outbreaks, where it's the same book, but it's printed on much higher quality paper. It's got a super shiny cover and a much thicker cover. It's got the whole cover gallery inside the back of the book. It's got a making of section and interviews, and like it's a proper, like, if you want to celebrate this book, then this is what you get. And they're also exclusive to Kickstarter. Like I always do like exclusives, early birds. There it is right there. I always try and really do a variety of stuff to make it worthwhile, right? It's it's a different market than the standard market. Like you go into a comic book store, and I guess a comic book these days costs about what, $5 or something like that. But it's printed on the worst possible paper. There's no fun like in the back. Like it's just like it's the means to the end of getting to the trade paperback. That's what they're there for.
Right.
On here,
and often there's maybe one version of the book, or if it's there at all, by the time you get it. Yeah.
But here you can have fun, and you can like, I love printing on like really quality paper. Like the blacks are so black, and like it's just like a really great experience. And one of the other things that I really love is something that my wife got me into was making the packaging and a true experience of when I ship this stuff out. And I try to make it as fun as possible. Like on our last campaign, we put everything inside popcorn bags because it's like to do with the zombie movie theater theme. Yeah. And we got like a thermal printer, so we were able to do all these custom stickers. Like every single book, like on the back of it has like the logo to Outbreaks to seal the book, and we even have like a little gummy zombie eyeball that like as like just in every single packaging, because when I buy my art supplies, they randomly always give me a little bag of Haribo, and that always for some reason makes me go back and buy from them, because I'm like, well, I'll buy from these guys because they give me free candy, right? That's like the oldest sales tactic in the world, giving someone free candy. But yeah, it's fun stuff like that makes, like, I've had so many people say like, oh man, sometimes like you order from a Kickstarter and you just get like a piece of cardboard and the book, and it doesn't feel like as exciting as the campaign was. But they always say like, oh, I really like, I get like the free trading card, and like it's always in fun packaging, and like sometimes little notes and stuff like that. To me, I think means a lot, because you're leaving. I think this is something, actually, I'm probably just directly quoting you here, but it was, that is your final impression on your customers, right? Putting that package together and sending it off to them. And if you don't care about that package, then you're kind of saying you don't care about your customers. And that's no good in my book.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great opportunity. And, I have seen a lot of creators that add that little extra touch, and makes it so much easier for people to be excited about backing them again. I think that also segues nicely into the unique nature of what you're doing here with your Kickstarter projects, is that you're sort of combining two of the things that I don't think when Kickstarter was first founded, we necessarily knew that this was going to be the case, but one of the first categories of projects that really started popping and was like, oh, this is like a new era for this, is the Anthology project. And so, and we saw a lot of like, it seemed like the trend was bigger and bigger anthologies. I remember like Womanthology when that launched, and like it just kept, like the thing was like, how many more pages can we add, and how many more creators can we add to it, and how big can this thing get? And these launches got bigger and bigger and bigger. A lot of time, and I think we've seen that with other, Tales from the Pandemic, a couple of other projects where they take on this like size of their own, and then that on the back end ends up creating all kinds of terribleness, because when you're in the middle of a launch, you want to say yes to everything, and you see the dollars coming in and all of that. But then on the back end of actually like fulfilling this ever growing project can be a big pain. So that's, but anthologies have been pretty cemented in Kickstarter over the past 14 years. And then the other thing that also, like, I don't think I saw coming, I don't think most people saw coming, was serialization and the power of serializing books. And that, unlike the direct market where most books, even from Marvel and DC, struggle to make it 6 issues or past that, without having to reboot, rebrand, etc. On Kickstarter, most series are able to grow over time, or at least stay pretty consistent and pretty stable, such that the team can just keep making those series. And so those are sort of two of the dynamics that really work really well on Kickstarter. And you are essentially combining those two things. But it's something that there's not a ton of these on Kickstarter, these sort of comic-sized anthology that will go on over time. Talk about that and coming to that decision. Like, was there a time when you thought, well, maybe I'll just wait until this is your standard 100 and something page anthology and just do that one big launch? But did you consider that? And then what would you say are the benefits of doing it the way you're doing it right now?
So for me, I look at anthologies, and most of them are a bunch of short stories put together under one sort of banner, and then you're done, right? Like, you look at like the Creepshow movies or something like that. Like, they're a bunch of little bites. But I love shows like Black Mirror, where you might have an episode that's 30 minutes long, or you might have like a 2-hour long movie. And I really like taking the anthology but making it more long form. Like, for instance, issues 1 through 3 of Outbreaks is a story. It's not like, hey, we got 5 pages here and 2 pages here and this thing here. It's actually like super long storytelling over a series, and I find that to be really fun and freeing. I mean, yes, we have a backup story in the back that is also just a complete ongoing story throughout the book, but I just find you've got pure freedom to tell whatever you want there. Like, for instance, the next story I might do in Outbreaks, I've been playing with the idea of doing like a 6 or 7 issue long series, but it's all under the Outbreaks banner, because my goal at the end of the day is I want to hit that compendium. I want to get a 50 issue big Outbreaks book on my shelf. That's like the absolute goal of this project. That's not to say that I won't do the shorter stories here and there. And I love that stuff as well, but there's always something I feel like when you finish like one of these anthology books, you're like, oh man, I just want more, like I want to know what happens next. So I do like that. But what I found with the serializing is, I was always worried, like, oh, issue 2, right? Like, issue 1 got funded, but issue 2 is where it's tough. I found the complete opposite, because since it's serialized now, I get to go into a second campaign and say, hey, my book was successful. You could still get issue 1 if you're a new reader, and here's issue 2. Well, now I have product on me that I don't need to fund anymore. Yeah, I had to print some more copies of it, but I don't need to actually pay and raise money for the colorist and this, that, and the other, the cover artist, etc. It's done. So like for issue 3, it's great. Like, I have a bundle pack of issues 1 through 3. which I think sells for around 30 or 35. So my average pledge level, as I keep going through this series, it goes up and up and up and up and up. Like this one was a great one because my average pledge level, I think, is around £40, and like that's great for trying to hit your goal. Like you can really hit that goal when you have a higher average pledge level like that. And I like that's why I think serializing is definitely the way to go. I think issue 1 is actually the hardest. Like I'm going to be launching a mini series as well this year. It could be like a 7-issue series. That'll be my next project. And I'm worried for issue 1 because it's a real struggle to get people to jump onto a new property, where this is I can talk about it all the time, and I pretty much keep it exclusive to Kickstarter as well. I don't have an online store or anything. I do Whatnot streams every month. That's something new that I've been doing, where I sell signed copies of the book. But I have a lot of people reach out to me, be like, "Hey, I know you talked about your book. I'd love to pick up a copy." And all I do is I give them the link to sign up for the next one, or my mailing list, or I'll be like, "Hey, I'll just send you a personal email." And I've seen those people return for it. And I just find that Kickstarter itself is a platform on purpose. Like there are comic fans on this platform, and it's kind of like its own. There's fandom for independent work there, and it's just its own entity where it's a trusted brand. People understand it, and they can help you out there as well.
Yeah, and you know, you've demonstrated, you know, your first launch, and I, you know, I think sometimes we get caught up in like the comparisonitis, and you compare it to like the biggest projects out there, but it's like as you said, the hardest launch is that first one. You know, you're going into it where every backer to you is a brand new backer to you.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, but you were able to get your first project funded, 100 backers, £4,000, and a little more than that. You saw, you know, 133 backers for the second launch. That's a 33% increase in backers is pretty strong, and got over the 5K mark. And then for this current launch, you're already this is already your most funded Outbreak. You're closing in on your backer high from the last one, and you've got 22 days on the clock. So a good example of growth over time, and that's something that is one of the hallmarks of Kickstarter. It does like, it gets easier over time. One thing I think that that makes it so it doesn't always feel easier is that we as human beings are very quick to normalize success, right? And so the expectation game, success is it just getting funded, or now is it like, oh, well, my last campaign grew by 33%. So now, you know, we play our psychological game. Sometimes we're like, well, if it only grows 25%, maybe it, and these are those are sort of mental games that we have to always play and stay grounded with.
It's interesting you say that, because my thought is never really on growth. It's about just getting it made. I do make charts where I've listed like each day of the first campaign next to each day of the second campaign, next to each day of the third campaign. And I compare, okay, how many backers did I have on this day? What was the percentage funded, and how much money did I bring in? And that's always interesting. And I leave little notes like, you did free trading card this day. You did free comic if you sign up this day, and all that type of stuff. So that's quite fun. Like I love looking at like the analytics and the best way of getting it out there. But I don't have that mentality of what you talked about there. I'm like, I'm not bummed if like if this just got funded, great, because it means it's funded, right?
Yeah.
I mean, now it's overfunded. This is where the true fun begins, because if I can keep pushing it again, then who knows who'll be the cover artist for the next one, right? Like, my goal is always to go for like superstar artists. Basically, whatever I can afford is who I'm going to get for the cover. So in my dreams, like in the future, I really want David Finch on cover, J. Scott Campbell, like Art Adams is a huge one that I definitely want. And I'm just going to keep going for those people, because it weirdly legitimizes my product to myself, if that makes any sense. Like how is this like an indie comic that no one cares about when Art Adams has drawn the cover? You know, it's like I'm convincing myself that Outbreaks is a legitimate product.
Absolutely. Well, I love that, and I love, staying in that attitude of gratitude, and it's a very attractive position to be in. And I know sometimes creators are our own worst enemies, but you're keeping a smile on your face, and you're working on a book that you clearly love. Um, I want to talk a little bit because last year when we last talked, you were on the podcast. We expanded the conversation to like the broader world of freelancing and comic market and comics industry in general. And you know, you're someone that has walked, now three paths, right? You've done the freelancing work for hire path. I know you have been also sort of pitching publishers on your own sort of IP and your own creator owned or creator driven or creator shared concepts. And then you've also uh, dived headfirst into this world of crowdfunding and self-publishing. Of those three things, like just from where you're sitting right now, can you break down for those creators out there that are listening? Maybe they're artists, maybe they're like wondering like which path to go down or what combination. Like what would you say like the pros and cons of each of those three are? And we'll start there, and then I've got a couple follow-ups.
I'll start with the crowdfunding because I'm going to start with the reason why I've done it. It's because um, I've been pitching for years my own creative ideas, and yes, I've had success where I've written and drawn a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles short issue, and I've drawn and written Vampirella and this, that, and the other. Like I've had some fun working on IPs, but the problem when you work with IPs is that you don't have full creative freedom. You have to appease the people that own the IPs, which I totally understand, right? Like it's the same with Hollywood. Like the people are always walking on eggshells because they don't want to offend any of their audience, lose fans, and lose interest in their IPs. But I sometimes feel like that the people that are managing these IPs are really stifling creativity and people truly exploring how much fun you can get out of these things. So it can be a real headache, like trying to, when I worked on certain IPs, I won't say which, you have to, you have a really cool idea, but they'll go, you can't do this because of this, or we don't think, or hey, I just heard that Aquaman's doing a story like this, so maybe we should stop doing like your whole story because it's kind of like this Aquaman book that's coming out in 2 years. That actually happened to me, and it drove me nuts because I spent like a whole year writing a story that just because they heard that potentially Aquaman was going to do something, I had to change the whole thing. So that's really frustrating. But it depends on who you are as a creator. I've always wanted to be someone who creates their own stuff. That's what gets me up in the morning. That's what I want to do with my life. And I just felt like I wasn't doing that working at Marvel and DC and all these other places. And I was tired of hearing no about all of my pitches. And I thought, well, I love it, and I truly think other people will love it. Like with Outbreaks, all the editors always said, "Oh, no one wants to read a zombie comic after The Walking Dead. Like it's done. Like that trend's over." I'm like, to me, it's not a trend; it's a passion. And like that's why I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it myself. So I love that. But look, if you are the type of person that's like, "Hey, I just want to draw Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man. I just want to draw him. I don't care what the story is. I love drawing. Like I love the process of drawing. That's me. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. Hell, Marvel and DC, they want to hire you because that's the people that they definitely want. And it can be super rewarding. Like, I really think that any creators should try and get into one of these companies because it immediately legitimizes you, right? Like, I get to say, I'm Will Robson. I've worked on Batman, Spider-Man. These are household names that people recognize, so that when I go off and do something like Outbreaks, I can say, hey, I'm Will Robson, the guy who drew Batman and Superman, and now I'm bringing you my own book. That's like something that really can bring you to an easy level for a new customer to say, well, I trust you because you've worked professionally in comics, But like, if you want to work on that, that's fine. So that's like the freelance stuff. Pitching. It's a grind, man. It is a grind because the thing with pitching is you put your pitches together, which, pretty much how it usually starts is you give a company a log line, right? You say it has to be like a sentence long that summarizes your whole story. And if you can't summarize your book in a sentence, then you need to go back to the drawing board because that's like the most important thing in all of comics, like in terms of writing. Like with Outbreaks, if I did it in one sentence, I'd say it's a zombie anthology book told through the perspective of a zombie called the Maitre Z, who runs a movie theater in the zombie apocalypse where you and a bunch of zombies are the customers. So it would be something along the lines of that. So what I usually do is, because I still pitch today, I send some editors some log lines of some of my IPs, and they go yes, yes, no, no. And the ones they say yes to, then the next stage comes where you have to put together like a package, right? A pitch package. And that includes what's the theme of this book? What's the overall story? If someone's a fan of something who would like this, basically it's your Kickstarter page, right? Like It's like when you lay out the whole Kickstarter page, it's like, I'm trying to sell you on this idea. Here's some previews of stuff. This is what it's like, etc. Except the only thing you don't include on the Kickstarter page is you tell them the full story beginning to end. And that's a lot of work. It's a lot of brain work. It's a lot of hours, and you don't get paid for this stuff. It is on your dime and on your time. And it is so heartbreaking when you spend and you take time off, you don't earn money. Like I've taken weeks off where I've, not great financial decisions, but passionate creative decisions to focus on pitches. And then when people pass on them, it's heartbreaking. But then the thing is that I've had pitches get picked up as well. And you're like, oh, great, let's do this. And then it's like, okay, well, now you need to write the bigger pitch, right? Where you have to break down issues like 1 through however many issues. And that's not paid work either.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of work you have to do for free. And then you start making the book. And then if you're like me, your book can just be canceled. And then all of that work was for nothing. So that's another side of the industry. But it doesn't always go the same way it went for me. Like you could get it picked up and pitched and you'll be good.
Yeah. And I know, unfortunately, there's a lot of. I'm curious, like with your book, was like, had you gotten into like getting a lot of pages done? Were you that far in, or
I drew
just prep work? Yeah,
I think I drew about 5 pages, and I wrote 2 scripts out of a 5-issue run, I believe.
Yeah,
and I got paid for that work as well, And I worked with a tremendous editor. It's nothing to do with the editors. It's all the higher ups and the decisions they make and budget cuts and this, that, and the other. But that sucks, right? Like, I just want to create my own stuff, and I didn't even know there was a chance that it could all be taken away. I thought when the pitch got picked up, I was there, I made it, and that's why I've said to myself recently, like, I'll keep pitching to companies, but I want to make my own stuff. And people on Kickstarter are allowing me to make my own stuff, whether they're fans of my work or they just want to support me in general. And I was like, I'm all in on self publishing and crowdfunding now, because I'm doing Outbreaks and I love Outbreaks, and now my next thing is going to be a mini series that I pitched around that I'm truly passionate about, called Mobster Mash, which is about classic Universal monsters if they were all mobsters, all in a turf war over Tinseltown in the 1950s. So you've got like the Wolfman versus the Dracula, and they're all gangsters, and it's a really great, fun story. And I'm super passionate about it. And yeah, I've pitched it around, and I've had people pass in it, and I've had some interest in it as well. But I'm like, there's something I love to be in control of all the fun parts of crowdfunding, choosing the variants, hiring the cover artists. Like another thing, once I had a pitch go through at a company, and I said, hey, can we talk about variants? I would love, at this point, I was like, I would love to have Charlie Adlard do a cover, because I'm a big Walking Dead fan, and I thought it'd be cool. And they were like, oh, we'll never be able to afford that. So like, well, I'll give you a list of people that we can afford. So don't even think about that. Because I think I said Art Adams as well. And they're like, that would be our whole cover budget. So no. And that's not fun to me. Like, like why? I understand, like, and again, I'm not poo-pooing any business side. They've got to make money. They're not passionate about the work as I am, because they're a business and they have to be business smart, and they're not just going to chuck all their money into my passions. They're a means to an end. I'm making a product for them that they can go on to sell, turn into trade paperbacks, potentially turn into a television show. That's their number one goal. Their number one goal isn't to have fun, sadly, at the end of the day. It's to be a business. But I understand that. But that's the great thing about self-publishing, is I can say, hey, I can go off and sell a bunch of my original art, or make a bunch of sketches, save up the money to pay for Art Adams, and boom, I've got an Art Adams cover. because I'm passionate about the work I'm doing. And I think that's the best thing about Kickstarter is it's like the passion project publisher, right?
Right.
Like you get to see everyone's, making comics is tough. It's not easy.
Yeah.
And if you're doing it, if you're not passionate about it, I don't know what you're doing on Kickstarter then, because it's so much work, right? Like it's crazy. Putting a single comic book together is madness. And I've been doing it for over a decade now, and I've gone mad.
Yeah, I hear you. And so now the project that got squashed, that was with a publisher, are you able to do anything with that, or is that those rights locked up, or did they revert to you, or how is that working?
No, they gave all the rights back to me, and like I said, I have no ill will towards this company. Yes, I was upset when it happened, but it was a business decision at the end of the day. But it really opened my mind to being like, oh right, that you're a business and you're making a business decision. Well, I am a creative and I would like to make creative decisions, so that's why I'm full on like self-publishing. Honestly, one of my goals right now is to move my career away more from working for Marvel and DC,
Yeah.
and focusing solely on just producing my own stuff. Like I look at someone like Nick Patera with Axe Wheeler John, and what a freaking inspiration, right? Like that, like the way that he has put that book together and turned it into a huge thing, and he's basically switching his gears to making his own stuff. Like that's me. That's what I want to do. Like that's what I'm passionate about. But that's not going to stop me from, like, I send Marvel pitches all the time. I deny all of them, but I would love to write and draw some IPs eventually. But I'm not going to get those jobs unless I'm producing my own books, if that makes sense. Like I remember once when I first said to Marvel, you know what, I actually am interested in writing and I would love to write for you guys. An editor said to me, look, you've proved that you're good enough to draw for Marvel Comics. You've been doing it for years, but this is the majors, and you can't just walk in and write. So go off and learn, write elsewhere, and then come back to us. And that's exactly what I've been doing.
Yeah, and I think that's good advice, I guess, from the Marvel and DC perspective, because and you see a lot of times, like when they do bring in new writers, usually those they have had success in other, whether they be novelists or obviously working for the other publishers. So definitely good advice there.
Or making books on Kickstarter. There's been plenty of people that have made self-published books. I mean, look at Heather Antos, the editor. She put together a huge anthology series on Kickstarter, and then it eventually led to her getting hired as an editor at Marvel. So like the jobs are open there if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But it's not really what I'm looking for. I'm so passionate about creator-owned and making my own stuff that I'm really going to try and make it go for making it my sole income. And then that will be like me living my dream life. It's just me working on my own stuff and producing it and making a livable wage off of it. That's the dream for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, this is fun. And it's clear, like the passion is coming through, and from the covers, the stuff that you're making, the stuff that you're offering, the way you're running your campaigns, it's clear you're really leaning into that. So what else, like, are there any other trends or in the world of comics, creating, crowdfunding, the direct market, conventions, like that you're seeing right now, or that you think might be fun to discuss? What else do you want to talk about?
What, just comics, just stuff in general?
Yeah.
I don't do many conventions. I only go to conventions if I'm invited to them.
Yep.
I'm actually going to a convention in about a week out in Dubai for Free Comic Book Day. And here's the fun thing, right? Like I've put together a Free Comic Book Day version of Outbreaks, where I've taken all the covers that people have drawn and I've written like a little story, and I'm giving it away for free. And that's the great thing about running your own company, is like you can do fun stuff like that. Like I could just see me working at another company being like, "Hey, let's do this." They'd be like, "No, we're not interested in doing that stuff," and I hate that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would suggest people start looking into Whatnot. I found that to be quite a successful platform.
Tell me a little bit more about that, because I know Scout does like a lot of business on that, but for people that have no idea what you're talking about, what is Whatnot, and how did you get into it, and what have you been finding with that?
So I discovered Whatnot because I'm a collector. I collect vinyl records, retro video games, and comic books. Basically, those are my big ones, and trading cards as well. And I've always watched YouTubers that go around collecting video games. They're mostly in America, and they all started doing Whatnot, where basically these people would go out, they would hunt for video games, they would come back, start a live stream, and then the games they've collected, they'll basically do live bidding on that stuff. So if you're a fan of somebody and they have a live stream going on where they're selling something, it's probably more likely that you're going to make revenue there instead of just listing on eBay or in a store or something like that, because the person's right there holding the item, etc. So what I do is I do Whatnot every single month now. I've only done it twice though, so I'm really I'm really fairly new to it, but I do a live stream and I have a bunch of comps from my Marvel, DC, Image, whatever I've worked on, and I'll sign them live. So I start the bidding at like £5. It's based. So sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Whatnot is essentially live streaming combined with eBay. So it's you're watching a live stream and then a product will come up and then you can live bid for that product.
And you're watching Whatnot on Whatnot, right? Like
it's
its own dedicated app, right?
It's a dedicated app on the phone. I could show you right now. I don't know if it will pop up on the camera. And there's categories like it's if you're into video games, if you're into comics, like here, this person's live right now. Look, see they're selling comics and you can like bid on it and buy stuff, etc.
Yeah. I was actually at a convention, and this was last year at a Boston area convention, and the guy across from me, that was all set up, and like I think he was selling more on Whatnot than doing his live stream. Then it wasn't like a huge convention for like older books that he was offering, but he had his full setup there, so he was recording and doing his sales and seemed to be doing all right, and that seemed like it'd be a regular thing. So
well, here's the thing, just like I said, collector mentality, my approach to Outbreaks, I make it from the point of, like I said, I'm the customer. What would I want to make me buy something? It's the same with Whatnot, because I am a customer on Whatnot. I spend way too much money on Whatnot. I collect Walking Dead and Spawn and a few other things. Funny enough, the first thing I saw on Whatnot that popped up was an issue of Spider-Ham that I drew. So I was like, okay, well, I'm buying that. Like, I have to buy it immediately. And it's just the excitement of like the items right there, right? Like, sure, I can go on eBay and just buy the item for around the same price, maybe more or less, but Whatnot, you're there in the moment, so it's that impulse to get it. Right. But the great thing about Whatnot is you can get tremendous deals because it's a live auction, and I always start low. A couple of my books that I sell for around 30 to 40 quid signed, sometimes I'll sell them for like 17 or much lower, but that's okay because it's a fun process. So what I do is I put the camera like above my desk here, and I do a live drawing, right? And because I want it to be something interesting for people to watch, not just me holding up comics and trying to sell them. I like to do a live drawing, and that's connected to my Patreon, where if you're a Patreon member at the highest tier of my Patreon, you always win whatever drawing I'm doing. So there's always a raffle at the end, etc. And then, so what I do is I have the shop, and it lists all the items. So I'm like, here's the trading cards that we're selling today. Here's the Marvel books we're doing today, the DC books, and they're all going to be signed live by me. And I think that's a big thing because a lot of collectors, you might see something signed, but do you have really proof that person signed it? No, unless you got a certificate of authenticity or a picture with them or something. So I like to do like, I'm going to sign this live, and I'll ask people like, where do you want me to sign it and stuff like that. So it's like having a Comic-Con at home, basically. Yeah. That's really what it is. And I found great success with it. The first two that I've done, I've been able to pay my mortgage each month with each one. I'm like, great, let's keep this going because I might be able to fund my own comics through it. So now I've started to do things like exclusive covers of Outbreaks for Whatnot. I actually have the Whatnot branding on it because Whatnot is super open to all of this type of stuff. Nice. And I do that with the trading cards as well. Like it's like another platform for me, and I've made it the only place where you can get Outbreaks besides Kickstarter. So and I feel like it's new. It's exciting. It's something to try out that
So do you
It's a lot
have
of
like
fun.
a dedicated Whatnot page? Like, is it
I do.
Whatnot / at Will Robson or something?
It's oh god, I should probably know that off the top of my head, shouldn't I? But I think my username is Speech Comics because that's my imprint. I'll just hold it up to the camera
Yeah,
there.
Speech Comics. I've got it. Yeah.
Speech Comics. And there's like loads of fun stuff. Like I do a bunch of giveaways, so I'll give away like art all the time. Like I have stuff over here. Like here's a Snake Plissken that I drew ages ago.
Mhm.
That's just been sitting in my cupboard. I'll give it away, but like it's always like, hey, this giveaway is for everyone that's bought something so far on the stream, or this is a giveaway for if you follow me on Whatnot. Because if you follow somebody on Whatnot, then it means the next time I go live, it will directly notify them on their phone. And that's the exciting thing about Whatnot. It's like since it's on your phone, if I go live, it's going to let you know on the device that's closest to you. So
Yeah.
I think Whatnot should be paying me for all the stuff I'm saying right now, actually, because I'm really plugging it hard. But yeah, it's great. I enjoy the platform, and I'm looking forward to doing more and bringing more variety to it. And
Yeah. And
yeah.
what's their what's Whatnot's fee structure? Like how
It's
how do they make money?
it's they take a percentage of your sales. I can't remember the exact percentage, but it's not that bad. And the nice thing is that they do all the postage labels for you. So you just like have to print them out and send everything off. They are sticklers where they say you've got to send this stuff within 2 days of selling it, which I respect because, and they make it so that you don't get paid until the people have received their items in the post. And I've had hiccups here and there and some headaches, but it's an overall really good experience. And there's other people on there. Like I've seen other, Tom McFarlane's on Whatnot, and he does giveaways, and he uses it as a way to connect to his fans. I even got on a video with him. Yeah, Jonathan Cook. That I think that's when I first got him.
He said that's where he first got Outbreaks. So yeah,
exactly.
Reaching a as Jonathan said, I think it's the new generation in comic book selling.
I 100% agree.
Done as an auction style. Yeah, it's definitely something that that I'm definitely been thinking about for Comics Tribe, especially as like you, I'm not doing as many conventions, just travel the stage of my life. Like it's much more the Kickstarter model is much more convenient when you've got a little one at home and
absolutely. If you did a back cat like how like I do the same thing that you do, how you do as a stretch goal, you do your free comic book giveaway, and you go into your closet and see what the back catalog of books you have, and you do that as a thank you to everyone that's backed. You can do the same exact thing, but you could sell those books, right? Like if you did a Comics Tribe, like it'd be exciting to be like, hey, look what I've got, an issue of the Standard, like that we printed 15 years ago. And that, let's say you had like John Lee's there for some of it, he could sign stuff, and you definitely want to focus on signed material because I think that's the biggest interest there. But you could easily do a stream like that, and I've even thought about doing it connected to Kickstarter itself, like the free comic book giveaway. I've considered doing that on Whatnot. Because Whatnot, you can also connect to YouTube and Facebook and stuff like that. So it's a stream that just plays everywhere. So I recommend you look into it. I think you could find some clever ways to use Comics Tribe and whatever else Cthulhu to do with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, plushies. I bet you got tons of plushies, right?
Oh man, we've got the variant plushies. We've and there's also, but yeah, like an opportunity to give away freebies of like stuff that we just have, like, oh, we've got 40 of these and we got 60 of these, but yeah, opportunities to move some back stock and have some fun with it, I think, and clearly obviously build a little bit of an audience.
Yeah, and there's lots of people on there. And the fun thing for me is like I'll go on there as I'm hunting for like issues of The Walking Dead and stuff like that, and then I'll see like people in the chat that have backed like and bought stuff from me.
Yeah,
and like there's this one guy, I can't remember his name, but he collects Iron Man books, and every time I hop into like someone selling, I'll see his name there, and he'll be like buying Iron Man books. I'm like, hey buddy, how's it going? He's like, hey, and like it's a fun little community.
Yeah, nice. Well, thanks for that recommendation. I'm glad we got to talk a little bit about that. So we've got Outbreaks, 22 days left as we go live here. I understand you've got a sweet cover coming out for Crazy Latte thing called Love. So, like, are your DMs still open for people that are looking for variant covers and other freelance work? I know that. What percentage of that are you still keeping open? And then also, is there anything else that you want to plug before we wrap up?
I will definitely plug Adriano with Crazy Latte thing called Love. I did a really fun cover for that. I'm not going to say what it is. I'll let him reveal that, but it's an homage to a very famous movie poster that we had a lot of fun making. Thank you for hiring me for that. Everyone go check out Crazy Latte thing called Love. I'm sure his pre-launch page is available for that. In fact, I've heard him talk about it on this podcast before. But funnily enough, the thing I'm working on today is a variant cover for a Kickstarter book. And I'm starting to get more jobs like that. And I'm starting to love those more than drawing the freaking covers for like the big two, because it's like the passion's there. And sometimes in a lot of cases, they pay better. Like at the end of the day, like people understand the worth of a comic book creator. Like me, Tony Moore named his price and I paid him that, right? Like there wasn't any negotiation or anything like that. So I love indie comics. Like I really do. It's like how I started. And now I'm back, and I'm super duper passionate about it. So I would say check that out. Also check out Michael Kingston. He does the Headlock series. He makes all these great wrestling comics. I'm doing a variant for him right now. I think that will be going live while my campaign's going on. And obviously check out Outbreaks if you like zombies, if you like long form storytelling in terms of anthologies. And if you like fun, then come and check it out. Like one of the best things I've made for this is the booster packs. I love them so much. Like the actual the plastic, the fact that they look exactly like a booster pack that I would get as a kid is just like it's just the best.
Making stuff is tight.
That's right.
So much fun. Well, hey, Will, I'm glad to see that things are going well with you and your endeavors. It's always good to catch up with you, my friend. Thanks for sharing your time, your expertise, your insight with the ComixLaunch audience. We'll be watching and looking out for more Outbreaks, as it is the only ongoing zombie anthology comic out there, and you've got at least 50 issues in you. So
at least.
We look forward to seeing that unveil over time. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. And again, thank you for this podcast, because Outbreaks would not exist without the wisdom of you and all the guests that you have that share their experiences. I mean, it's the best way to learn, is just hearing about the way other people have had success. And I use that with anything in life. So thank you.
Yeah. And then it comes full circle, and here you are giving it right back to the awesome audience that listens in here. So to you, the audience, thank you so much
for
listening, and we can't wait to see what you launch next. Take care, everyone.